Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Athens City Council Transportation Committee meeting. Tonight, the first item on our agenda is pedestrian safety. Last Thursday, I had a chance to meet with some Ohio University students, some faculty and staff regarding pedestrian safety in the city of Athens, and I've invited them here tonight to speak and kind of let us know what they've been doing in the way of discussing pedestrian safety and what they'd like to see the city do. So I'll turn it over to Kellen.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to the members of the Transportation Committee for meeting with us tonight to discuss this important issue. As you may have known, our department suffered a terrible loss just a few weeks ago in the death of Abhishek Singh. Abhishek was personally close to me. I shared an office with him. And sort of in the wake of that, a few graduate students in the department sort of sat down in our common area to go over questions that we had. And the biggest thing that came out of this question was a lesson for all of us. And that lesson was that we are not as safe as we imagined we were on Athens city streets. Particularly at the Richland 682 intersection. The sheer volume of traffic at this intersection, both human and automobile, makes it a ticking time bomb. And this was a ticking time bomb that detonated Sunday, June 30th, when Abhishek died. Now, I'm not here to talk about each and every little problem that this intersection in Richland Avenue has. The committee has been meeting on this, and you're taking action, and I applaud your actions. Just being told that there was $2.7 million of funding already accrued for this overhaul project is startling, but what we're here to discuss, at least my organization, is the fact that we were told that it will take 2 years for any appreciable change. And so what we would like to do is know what we can do now. So my colleague Dave here has a letter which you've received. And in this letter we address three broad areas for attacking the issue of pedestrian safety in Athens. The first issue is attacking pedestrian safety directly. And by this, I mean we would like to see, for instance, clearly marked pedestrian crossings, particularly at Richland 682. I'd like the drivers to see where they're supposed to stop when I'm walking through an intersection. We'd also like to see jersey barriers. These are the large concrete construction barriers you often see along the highway installed along the Richland Avenue Bridge. I'm a humble physicist, but I can tell you I'm fairly certain that if a jersey barrier had been in place, Abhishek would be alive today. And given that it's going to be 2 years for something to significantly change on this bridge, we would like to see some sort of stopgap measure put in place. The second broad area where we would like to see changes made is to traffic control. For instance, I'm discussing reduced speed limits on Richland Avenue and 682 as you approach the intersection, rumble strips on 682 as you approach the intersection, red light warning signs that are so often apparent when you're driving on US 33 towards Columbus, say, to alert drivers when they need to stop. Things like this that are simple fixes that can be implemented fairly easily, which will make the traffic problem, disappear practically. And so that we can, have a safe intersection while we're doing this major construction project. And then lastly, the third general area where we would like to see improvements made is public transportation. The bus service south of the river is fantastic, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. We'd like to see more evening and weekend routes, particularly like 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. If Abhishek, had a bus route, he would have been on it, because no one, after working until 11:30 on a Saturday night, wants to walk 2 miles home. Again, this is the sort of thing that would happen. So we feel that if these are, these issues are addressed quickly, it's going to make the streets safer, and it's going to make, everyone much, much safer until this big overhaul project is completed. And I would just to say that it's not just us, some crazy physics people from the department that are interested in this. I have a petition with me which has 341 signatures that we collected in just a few days of people that are also concerned about this issue. So I'd like to thank you.
Thank you very much. As I had stated, we had a meeting last Thursday, which I felt was fairly productive in hearing a lot of the concerns and sort of working through these recommendations. Andy Stone was also at the meeting and was able to provide some insight as to what was workable in the near future as opposed to what is kind of a long-term plan. And I had, if council members, back when I started the Bicycle Safety Subcommittee, I said that I was going to be subsequently starting a pedestrian safety subcommittee kind of after the bicycle safety got underway. And I think that this is obviously an opportune time to really begin that with the energy and everything behind this issue. As it stands right now, these recommendations, I know that Andy's working to implement whatever can and cannot happen, and I know that we'll be staying in communication with all of you who are concerned and continue to work towards developing this pedestrian safety subcommittee where we can all, work towards these physical changes and making it safer to walk through Athens. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Anybody else?
I assume Andy and Amy has contact information with you guys, so that she can get in touch with you?
She will be getting it.
Yeah,
Okay.
we do. Does anybody else from the audience want to say anything in regards to pedestrian safety? You'll have to come up to the microphone and give your name and address, please. Yes, please.
My name's Tom Statler. I live at 109 Sunnyside in Athens, and I'd just like to amplify what Kellen said. This is an issue that affects everybody. It's not just foreign graduate students. It is anybody who is ever at the side of the road, especially, but not limited to, the intersection of 682. I agree totally with what Kellen said and what's been said here, that the plans for the long-term redesign of the intersection are a good idea, but waiting 2 years for an improvement in pedestrian safety really is not a good option, and we should not be waiting. In the longer term, I've read and heard a bit about Andy Stone's plans for the redesign of the intersection. I think it's good to be thinking about many different things, but I hope very fervently that whatever decisions are made about that redesign are made primarily with an eye to safety of all sorts, particularly pedestrian safety. I read, as a lot of people did, about the plans for a roundabout. I'm rather skeptical of that, and I hope that Andy will be able to show us hard data that really does demonstrate that whatever the ultimate redesign is really does impact pedestrian safety in a significant way. So again, I also want to thank the council for the actions in the right direction, and I hope the really good communication that has been occurring so far continues in the near term and the short term. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Would you be around, and there's a few, you're a faculty member, I believe, so you'll be around for future. I'm aware of the fact that Andy has many times when redesigning roads and doing various projects has communicated with the local people, local residents in terms of what the problems could be, and they want their input. So I assume he can contact you for that?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Carol?
An important point was, but not limited to, and I hope that we take this opportunity to look at some other places that have high concerns, some of which we've looked at before and talked about, but it's not happened. Mm-hmm. And so certainly what I'm hoping we can do is go beyond just the reaction to an event and be proactive on a wider scope.
Thank you. Jim?
I wasn't at the subcommittee. What were some of the things that seemed to be possible for the city to do in the short term?
I know that the stoplight indicators that blink, the yellow, the warning as that you're approaching the stoplight was something that might be able to happen in the short term. I know that one of the things that we talked about was an all pedestrian phase that we have up on Court Street, but Andy had said that that actually was not possible. The bus routes is something that we might be able to work on in the short term. Patrolling that area more. Another thing that we talked about was actually having cameras there that take pictures when people run red lights and different things like that. That might be able to happen in not in the next week or two, but in the more short term as opposed to a 2 years. So, and it wasn't a subcommittee meeting. This was just a meeting that we had that was called. Terry Hogan got a hold of me and we all got together.
Thank you.
Anything else? Anybody else from the audience want to speak? Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. Just give us your name and address, please.
My name is Alyssa Thomas, 3697 Hebbardsville Road, Athens, and I'm here partly to represent Graduate Student Senate. I was currently elected the senator for the College of Arts and Sciences, and was approached by Kellen, and then I've been doing some of my own research, basically looking at like a pedestrian safety campaign that actually educates not only drivers, but pedestrians, since we have a large component of college students. And there actually is quite a lot of free literature that is available from the U.S. Highway Department that I've already actually contacted. So I'd be willing to share with you those types of things. But I think that there definitely needs to be a campaign of awareness and education that also goes along with the physical changes. Because if you can't change how people feel about it, you can change all the physical things in the world. So we really need to include education with this.
Thank you very much. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a sign up. I'll put it right here. And anybody who's interested in being emailed about the pedestrian safety subcommittee, I'll be sure that you get on that and we can start forming that subcommittee and talking more about educational campaign as well as physical changes. Excuse me. Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to speak? Okay. I don't have any miscellaneous items unless Paul does.
Just one miscellaneous item. It would actually kind of fall under communications. I've gotten a couple of calls of concerns of the brick streets, tearing them up, and many people would like to see them in some good condition, but also just retain them. And that's why I mentioned it, just because I've had at least 2 people call me saying, keep the brick streets, please. And I could put that under our regular session and communication, but since we have a transportation meeting, I'd like to bring that up. So we would want to look at that sometime. I know we have a list of the historic district as well as the other brick streets in terms of condition.
Okay.
So,
Sure.
work through.
Along with that, I probably had more calls on that topic in a shorter period than I've ever had before.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of folks out there that would like to see us keep bricks wherever possible, not randomly, well, it's not random, I'm sorry, not take some and leave some, but aim for keeping as much as possible. And the reality is an asphalt road has a lifespan of approximately 7 years. A brick road done correctly has an infinite lifespan.
Debbie.
If it seems like there's support for this on council, one of the things that we discussed earlier was expanding the resolution of protecting the brick streets to include all of the ones that are currently on the list as being in good condition. So maybe there are a few that are in really bad disrepair that we may not be able to bring up to that good condition that can last a long time, but at least the ones that are on that list that are currently in good condition, to add them to the resolution to protect and keep
Sure.
brick.
Sorry, didn't mean. When I met with Andy last week, we discussed renaming more streets in that resolution, and I asked him just to get me more information on what streets could be added, which ones are in need of a lot of rehab that may be costly, and additional things like that.
He did give us that list
Yes.
on the, it's
Right,
in
but
the
the-
street
I
tour
thought
packet.
Right.
Andy gave you that report 4 months ago because
Well,
you
it's part of
authorized
the-
him to go ahead and do things.
Right, but it's, right. Yeah, we have some of that, yes.
We've got it.
It's
But
not
the
all
people
new.
weren't
That's what
calling
I'm saying.
then. No.
Right.
Well, that's the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Because when we talked about, when we brought it to council and said, this is the plan and how to do it, you okayed it, and there wasn't a whole lot of public, now if there's public discussion, you want to go back, and that's fine, but we're under construction these next 2 weeks.
Right, the ones that are under construction, I
And council was
understand.
okay with that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yes,
just this year. I mean,
Right,
accepting
exactly.
this year's plan,
right,
doing each plan year by year.
right.
My name.
Paul.
And I'll just add an additional comment somebody else made, who doesn't live on a brick street, says, well, why don't you get the owners of the brick street to get assessed for the differences in price? You know, after the explanation saying it costs more money to rebuild a brick street.
Right.
There I suggested, well, I'm sure the neighbors will pony up the extra money.
Right.
Of course, this person did not live on the brick street, so they weren't
Okay.
volunteering.
Right.
But I was just bringing that up as a concept this person brought up to me.
Well, maybe they could put a toll booth up too, because other people, other than the residents, drive on that street as well.
Oh, great, told them so.
Well, I mean, I just think that people have to stop thinking about the street as their property and think about the streets as the communal property.
Anything else for miscellaneous? I did have a resident approach me about the brick streets, saying that he believed his oil pan in his car was punctured by one of the bricks that was sticking up. He was supposed to call me and let me know which brick street, so.
Which brick?
Right, yeah, he said he knew which brick it was,
Oh dear.
but I haven't heard from him yet. I don't have anything else, okay, we're adjourned.
Okay, the Arts and Recreation Committee, the purpose of this committee is to touch on the license between the Hocking Conservancy District and the City of Athens, the Recreation Department. You have a copy of the license, and I must say, I have not studied it in great detail, and the administration would like a suspension on this because this has to do with the soccer complex. I can point out a few things in the contract, and then Ray, if you've got any additions to that, just to familiarize council with it a bit more. It refers to 21 acres of the Conservancy District land. It's a 20-year lease for $1. Those are good rates. It says no permanent structure. That is because the restroom included in the soccer complex is not a part of the Conservancy land. Then it goes through and says that the city is responsible for all of the building process, all of the permits that are needed, and all of the legal processes. Then it goes through and says what would constitute a breach of the contract or default of the contract, and that if such a breach occurred, that they would have 7 days before the agreement would be rescinded. And that's basically what's here. Ray, any addition to that in terms of just a thumbnail sketch?
No, not really. The Conservancy District agreements are always, I guess, very liberal or whatever. They're basically just seeking to protect the
Right.
flood fringe and let us use it for useful purposes that don't affect that.
Right. And it is their standard form. And this would be categorized as acceptable use for the soccer fields for that particular section of the floodway. Any specific questions? We will have 10 minutes here.
Yeah,
to
I had
look it over.
I had an earlier question
Okay.
about the restroom on what I thought was HCD property.
Right.
Whose property will it be on then? Is it?
It'll be on the easement the city has from Ohio University for the purposes of recreation, including the bike path.
Including the bike path, that's, right, okay.
It's right on the edge of the bike. Any other questions? We will have a few minutes between meetings that you can find any additional questions before the reading, but it would be ideal to suspend and pass this evening. Debbie, question?
We have enough people here to do that. Yes.
We do.
I was,
6, only if it's unanimous, yes. Otherwise, we got to figure out when to do it. Right. Any other questions? If not, I have no miscellaneous. If no one else does, we are adjourned.
Uppermost bank of the Hocking River.
So we have 10 minutes to read this contract again.
Lowermost. So what does 26 mean, Carol? While we're waiting.
Oh, 26.
The Hocking Conservancy District reserves the right to mow the uppermost bank of the Hocking River. Good evening. This is a regular meeting, the second regular meeting in July of Athens City Council. Just for the record, our next meeting will be the 4th of September, the day after Labor Day. According to our rules, we meet after a holiday. So just, that's our regular meeting. Who knows between now and then what else will come up. On the 25th of August, council will be meeting at the OU Inn for a retreat at 8 o'clock, between 8 and 2. And that's a public meeting. I want to make sure you all know that's going on. Okay, first of all, there's a quorum of council. There are 6 members present. I'm a member of council and acting as the president this time, so I may vote on things. Communications. Any communications that would fall?
I've been getting some emails concerning smells coming out of 3rd Street, and I assume that's being worked on.
Yes.
Okay.
A work in progress. Anybody else?
No report.
Okay, reports from, he's way ahead of me. Reports and communications from other elected officials? Gary has none.
Have a good break.
I'm sorry, oh yes, thank you. Kathy?
I hope I don't have to call you back.
Okay. All right, so ordinances for third reading, 07807, an ordinance suspending the enforcement of Athens City Code, Section 13.04.10, unnecessary noise in the downtown area on October 27th and 28th, 2007, Halloween weekend. Councilmember Patterson.
Madam President, I move adoption of 7807.
Second.
This ordinance is the final one of the group of ordinances that are standard operating procedure for Halloween weekend. And this is to just suspend our noise ordinance during the festivities.
Any other comments on the ordinance? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 07907, an ordinance to allow alcohol for special events on the premises at the Arts West facility. Councilmember Patterson.
Madam President, I move adoption of 7907.
Second.
This ordinance is to align Arts West with the alcohol policies at the community center, allowing for private events to serve alcohol with approval of the staff there and by signing agreements in terms of behavior and protection of the property. And if those are violated, they are removed and they don't come back again to Arts West for an event. It also allows for, if a group wants to sell alcohol on the premises, they can obtain an F license and do that. And it does, in the community center ordinance already excludes outdoor things. So that is not a part of this at all. It's in the buildings at our Arts West.
Any other comments on the ordinance? Hearing none, all those in favor of 07907 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 08007, an ordinance approving the final plat of the Grand Vista University Estates Planned Unit Development. Councilmember Phillips.
Madam President, I move adoption of 08007.
Second.
This comes to us on the recommendation of the Planning Commission. We did discuss it in committee. I brought the plans here because one of the things we talked about in an earlier session was, because it is a gated community, there was some concern about how people would get to the bike path if they were traveling by bike. So there's now a hand-drawn little extension of the bike path that's been initialed by Lance Rupp as a representative of University Estates. So that is recorded on the map to reflect our discussion at an earlier meeting.
Could you pass it down?
This was one of my concerns. I'm glad to see it's been amended to the map. I think one of the other discussions I've had with several citizens is the concept of a gated community inside Athens. I know there's some concern about what that entails and what it means for a city to have a need for a gated community. But at the same time, I'm glad we at least have a pedestrian way of getting in and out, or at least to the bike path.
Other comments? Audience? Hearing none, all those in favor of 08007 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 08107, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to provide partial funding for street repair work on Shady Lane. Councilmember Phillips.
Madam President, I move adoption of 08107.
Second.
We've discussed this pretty thoroughly. This is a road that is actually outside the city, but it's in the 3-mile area. So the county and the city and the township are all kind of involved in trying to deal with this situation and make sure the road gets fixed. The bond had been released before the road was finished, and the developers, I believe, went into bankruptcy. So we will be seeking reimbursement for our share in this, and we are authorizing up to $10,000 to help with the costs, which are estimated to be about $29,000. And we will seek to recover those funds from the property owners using an assessment process based on their share of road frontage.
Other comments on 8107? Jim?
Madam President, I'll just repeat my comments at first reading that I don't support this. I don't see, somebody said it doesn't set a precedent, nor do I see a precedent that allows us to do this. And I just think up to $10,000 could be better expended within the city limits instead of the 3-mile limit.
Paul?
I think this is one of the responsibilities of actually controlling the 3-mile limit in terms of subdivisions. We have, in theory, we have our say in what goes on in subdivisions within the 3-mile limit. Just in case we ever annex it in, I believe is the rationale for that. The fact that this fell through the cracks or was not followed through at one point, it's still part of our responsibility. Not that we're trying to claim it, but it fell through everybody's holes, so to speak, from county onward.
The trouble with metaphors, pretty complex.
I know.
8107, any other comments? All right. Hearing none, all those in favor of partially funding street repair for work on Shady Lane, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
The ordinance passes 5-1. 08207, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 25, Flood Damage Prevention, Chapter 25.06, Definitions and Figures, Section 25.0601, Definitions. Councilmember Phillips.
Madam President, I move adoption of 08207.
Second.
This just helps to define market value in dealing with what constitutes substantial damage or substantial improvement, to try to help clarify if there's any question about whether enough of the property is being modified that needs to come into compliance with our floodplain regulations.
Other comments on
Nancy.
8207? Paul?
One of the only concerns I'd have is that if we have 3 different evaluations and 3 different numbers, how do we decide which one it is? But I've been told that if we have a flood event, FEMA would come in and make its choice anyway.
Well, that, and it would be my opinion that it would go down in descending order, so you would.
Okay.
You would use the sale price first, the appraisal second, the occupying third.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, other comments on 8207? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 08307, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 29, Housing Regulations, Chapter 29.03, Rental Dwelling and Housing Permit, Section 29.0308, Fees. This is introduced by Councilmember Bain. I move adoption of 08307.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we amend Athens City Code to collect our housing permit fees in a timely fashion. We had quite a few, $25,000 worth that weren't paid after roughly the time period plus. And so we decided that we would try another option, and that would be to have a one-year, gotta watch my metaphors, don't I? One-year cancellation should the rental fees not be paid. And as soon as they are paid, of course, it's reinstated, but the thing is that we have to pay our fees. So fundamentally, that's what we have in this ordinance, 8307. I've just talked to the law director, and I will proceed and ask him in writing for comments on the 6-month option that we discussed earlier, and it'll go through committee on the normal pattern. Teresa Carter was kind enough to send me information. We're down to 25. Several of those are relatively complex inheritance or other things, and some are just plain, I suppose, not to use a metaphor, but knuckleheads maybe that haven't paid.
Nancy, I would also indicate that those are reported to our office well in advance of the year, usually within about 3 months.
Okay.
There's
All right.
efforts in our office.
Any other comments? Thank you. So we have a little more idea on the workings of it. We don't have the 6-month window yet. Okay, all those in favor of the ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 08407, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 13, General Offenses, Chapter 13.04, Offenses Against Public Peace, Section 130410, Unnecessary Noise. Introduced by Councilmember Bain. I move adoption of 8407.
Second.
We've moved and seconded this particular ordinance. We've read it several times. The first time through, we changed a bit. I actually have it in front of me. We changed some definitions, residential zone, R1 and R2 zone. Remember, we've gone through this. The judge informed me that the word allow would help. We added some other additional information and vocal noise and so on. I've been through that a couple of times, and you all know basically what's in there. What was also in there were some confusing statements, and so thanks to Jim Sands and Debbie Phillips, we've deleted one section that we've melded, that's the source for the substitution, and added some ors, so it reads much better. I guess I thought it was legalese, I don't know, I'm just teasing. But anyway, it slipped through my view, and so we've read it. This is our 4th or 5th time. The purpose is not to stop anybody from doing their thing. The purpose instead is to give everybody a chance to enjoy their property. Fundamentally, that's basically the way I see it. So there are 2 different parts to this. One part was focused in our discussion on East Elementary, large installation. Okay, so you need an air conditioner for kids for school. Okay, that's true. And I think the same thing could be said for the large compressor up on the ridges, which people have complained to me about, and several others. But if you're in a R1 zone, what you might want to do is figure out a way to reduce the noise so that the people who live in this zone have calm and safety in their house. Noise is by definition a pollution. It is not sound, it is noise, and it's noise pollution that goes on once it goes above the 55 or 84 decibels that we have in the ordinance. And there are studies on this. I mean, you can go back and look at the literature. We even have specialists now, and then since we've had Physics Day here, I would say that Dr. Stump sent me a note of acoustical consultants. So should the people have trouble with trying to find a way to baffle their noise, we'll keep this on hand, and you can go ahead and come in and do that. That would be for the large installation with a large compressor that makes a lot of noise that annoys the neighbors. And that is something that will happen either day or night. And we don't want to trivialize the right of people to enjoy their property in their homes. And that's fundamentally why we're doing this, I think, or at least why I brought it forward. The second one is the one about the peculiar landscape of Athens and how we solve that problem. This one, too, is a let's all get along kind of thing. If you're making a lot of noise and it's disturbing your neighbors, what you want to do is, if you're convicted of it, I guess is what it comes down to according to the way this is written, come up with a way to baffle the noise. You can have your party and chanting and have a heck of a good time, but meanwhile the people who live on Congress Street and other streets have a chance to sleep if that's their pleasure. It's between 11 and 5 in the morning, so it's not for most of us who, it's what would be called normal sleeping hours, and it's not a big deal, at least as I see it. I'm open to other suggestions, but I do think that 8407 fundamentally is a fine-tuning of trying to attack some of the problems, trying to get our people to say, okay, I'm creating a problem for people, let me solve it, or have the city tell them to solve it, either way. And that's basically it. And I thank Gary for getting the information out. Anybody in council wishing to speak? Carol?
I mentioned previously that I was concerned about the 50 feet and the voices. Since then, several people have spoken to me that they concede that point. If you were having a party in your yard normal voices, you could be in violation of this, and 50 feet is pretty close. For that reason, although I support everything else in the ordinance, I think that it's cleaned up, it's some good progress, but I don't like that part of it, and so I'm going to vote against it, with the thought that perhaps people will remember to go back and maybe keep an eye on that one. I've even had one person tell me that this occurred in her neighborhood at her house, that she was having a party on her back porch and that the police were called. Now, this was before this law was even enacted, but the police were called for regular neighborhood festivity. That concerns me, and so that's the reason I will vote against it at this time.
Yeah, just to clarify, we did not change the 50 feet. It's
I
always been
know
in there.
that.
It's been in there from the get-go.
But the voice thing is what's different.
Yeah, the voice thing is different. But if you're playing your stereo and the people down the street can hear it, they can call. It's mostly complaint-based, as you know,
Right.
and as you mentioned last time. So there we are.
And the instruments are, that's close for them too, but the talking, I just have observed in my neighborhood, which is very echoey, you can hear conversations, you can hear children playing. Now, after 11, that tends to abate, but but you can hear people's just backyard barbecue. And I find that concerning, because to me, that limits a right as well.
Okay, Paul.
I've been hearing some mixed feedback on this. I've done community service with students who said they've never gotten warnings on this. I was going to get up here earlier, but I actually had a voter in my ward saying that she has called several times to one particular location and asked for their police reports, and only one citation in the dozen times that she's called. So there, when you start saying there's warnings on this type of stuff, or that this might be a concern for 50 feet, the house she's complaining about is more than 50 feet away. She has reported lots of times, and there's only been one citation as a result. So, again, I've heard it both ways. The student says, I had no warning of this, I got slammed. And the other side is, I've been complaining for a long time, and I'm not getting any relief. So maybe this means that there is a balance of some sort. I think we will keep a track of this. I'm sure we'll hear about it one way or the other.
Debbie?
I also heard from a constituent in my ward about this who had actually spent some time with a decibel meter exploring the level with different kind of activities, who did point out that just mowing your lawn clearly would, if it wasn't exempted, which it now is, could be a violation. And I think one of the other changes that happens in here is that we've actually raised the allowable level, that it was set, including vocal noise, at 55 decibels during that time period, and we've taken it to 85 based on the list that Nancy had of the kinds of noises that would cause that noise level. So I think, it's a concern that maybe some things could get called in that you would think would be normal activity, but I think we've also raised that level to try to make it be more realistically based on a level of noise that is a real problem.
Yeah, and Jim, before I pass it on to you, I just think we have to review for a moment and say, when we've looked at the issues surrounding the enforcement of the ordinance, we'll have maybe hundreds of calls, and maybe 10% are actually tagged. And I think that's pretty normal. And I guess the other thing that really bears repeating time and time again, that the most frequent caller, not surprisingly, is an Ohio University student against another student, somebody who wants to study, who is impeded or wants to get up early in the morning because they have an 8 o'clock chem class, can't make it in. And I think that's been borne out. Every time I've had students come in for midday and talk to me, they'll say, well, the guys down the hall are really awful. So I called on them, but I don't want them to know it. But anyway, so that it's not that I'm calling, it's that the people in the neighborhood who are adversely affected, who are largely students, are calling. But this isn't really a student issue. This is much more just a corporate issue. Yes, Jim?
we did change the decibels from 55 to 85, but there's a conjunction here that says a distance of 50 feet or, and maybe we should consider
And?
an amendment to change that to an and. This
Let's see.
this has always been here, and we're raising the decibel limit. We're putting some language in that we hope makes it more enforceable. So I would vote to go ahead with this, but maybe amend it.
Council is buying a decimal meter. Rita, I'm going to be out there on Saturday night. Just, yeah.
When you talk
Hold
about,
on, I'm sorry.
when you talk about students reporting students, one of the issues that was brought up to me is that some of the older residents hesitate to actually call in on these parties for retaliation purposes. And I'd like to mention that as well. So the data you're mentioning might be skewed just by the fact that many people don't feel like they can actually safely report a party next door.
And in the best of worlds, the absolute best of worlds, the people that are having a party should go talk to their neighbors and invite them and say, here's my phone number if you have a problem. I've known students that have done that.
Yes, same.
And they've had very successful times in their neighborhood, including even the people you don't know. And it's just it's neighborliness, that's all it is. Anybody else? Rolling around. Anybody from the audience wishing to speak? No additional comments? All right. All those in favor of, let's see, I've got to find
84.
8407, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
5-1 is the vote on 8407. 8507, an ordinance amending ordinance 5107, authorizing street paving and repairs. Amy Flowers.
Thank you, Madam President. I move adoption of ordinance 08507.
Second.
As council is aware, this is the street and paving ordinance where we needed to ask for more money due to an increase in asphalt cost and also the cost of brick rehab. That was not calculated. So asking for more money.
Right. The age of fossil fuels. 320 gasoline. Higher.
Paul?
And the total amount is?
The total amount of the street paving is $505,200
That's it. Any other comments?
only.
Hearing none? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes. 8507 passes 6-0. 8607, an ordinance determining to proceed with sidewalk construction and improvements on Stewart Street as described in Resolution R607 and declaring an emergency. Council Member Flowers.
Thank you, Madam President. I move adoption of ordinance 08507.
Second.
Wait, yes, sorry. No, 08607. Church,
Second
just
is mine.
kidding. Councilmembers, this is the, let's see, next step in doing the Stewart Street sidewalk, which we're all anxiously awaiting. And this is the second to last step in getting this project underway. Further, I wanted to announce that I'm unofficially aware that there has been no construction on the part of the property owners who expressed doing it themselves. They had until Sunday to complete that, and since that has not been completed, this will be done as a whole project, and they'll be assessed.
This is the next to last step?
Yes.
What's our next step?
Our next step is an ordinance levying special assessments.
These things after the project's constructed,
After it's constructed?
usually, because you're gonna have to wait and see what the actual cost is.
So, in other words, if this passes, construction
Will
will
begin.
begin.
Correct.
Okay.
So,
Any other comments on 8607? Good work, Amy. All those in favor of 8607, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 8707, an ordinance amending Athens City Code Title 9, General Regulations, Chapter 9.12, Streets and Sidewalks, Section 9, 12.22, Sidewalks and Gutters, Enforcement Routing by Councilmember Wiley.
I move we amend 8707 by substitution.
second.
Okay, you should have gotten in your mailbox a substituted version of this. This represents some of the changes that we put in here. Basically, two changes. One is I talked to the solid waste litter control officer, who pointed out the old version gave enforcement times between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. for the residential area and commercial noon to 1 p.m. being 1 hour. He felt this would not be possible to actually patrol or enforce any of these areas. So we struck that out in terms of the enforcement times. The other consideration he had was that fact that we put in at the last section in terms of penalties, $100 to $300. He felt that, this is feedback from this litter control officer, that we should be at least similar to what we have in terms of litter, which is usually a gradated, going from 20, 40, 60, 80 to 100.
Okay,
And
so
that's-
it's
those are the
moved,
two
we have a
changes.
move, is there a second?
Yes.
There was a second, I think.
Okay, all those, you want to discuss the amendments, or are you overwhelmed?
Go ahead.
No, I'm fine.
She's overwhelmed.
A lot of bold here.
Litter.
If you look at the original, most of the bold is what was already there in place. Again, the only section that's changed is section would be Section E, has a Section 1 and 2 in there that's been struck out in the older version.
And then
If you want, I can read that section. That's missing.
And your signal is that you are going to read this in September, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, we're not going to suspend rules on this. I figured it could perk through and people can look at it and decide if it needs any more tweaking.
Glad the litter control officer was helpful. I'm glad the litter control officer helped you out.
Yes, he did. Thank him for it. Actually, I got feedback from Ray as well,
Good.
and other members.
All right, any other discussion on the amendments as stated, with the plan to read the rest of it in September? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The amendments passed 6-0, and the ordinance is read for the first time.
I do have one comment about the ordinance is being read for the first time. I am really glad to see this happening because, and I know that this isn't only going to apply to Court Street, but up on Court Street there are a lot of cigarette butts that are just in those bricks that are right off the curb. It'd be nice to see those, sucked up or swept up, however they come up. In addition, I wonder if, I don't know if we can include in this at all, the containers outside for the cigarettes outside of the establishments, or if we can do anything with that in addition to this.
Eventually, that's going to have to be dealt with. My impression is that Michael is eventually going to be working on the uptown area during the slack period in terms of trash, and one of the things would be to look at our litter situation uptown, but eventually is to see how we can get it cleaned up in
Right.
terms of the what you're talking about, cigarette butts and everything.
Right.
The other thing would be how well is our street sweeper working? That's a vacuum street sweeper. If it's not picking up the butts in between,
I mean, yeah, they're down in there.
I know.
So,
Sounds like a topic for a committee meeting, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Think of it as tobacco-laden grouting.
Right, yeah. So
All
it's
right,
not very
so-
pretty.
At some point, I would prefer you take up the issue of graffiti up
Yeah.
Yes, I've had that.
Another committee opportunity. We can have that the
I
second
agree,
week in September.
Gary.
Thank you.
Oh, we'll have a special
is bad.
session maybe.
All right. 8807, did we vote on that amendment?
Yes, we did.
Okay. 8807, an ordinance amending the 2007 appropriation ordinance. Councilmember Sand.
Madam President, I move adoption of ordinance 8807.
Second.
This is an ordinance that moves some money, appropriates from the unappropriated balance $4,000 into the CDBG Fund 248 and $19,500 into Athens City Enhancement Fund. These amounts of money will allow us to do some much-needed rehabilitation on a home that the city owns on Central Avenue. It's rented through the Metropolitan Housing Authority. We'll get some help from Tri-County Community Action with regards to this rehab.
And another advantage is that it's Section 8 housing, and so that means that it's low and moderate, and we have precious little of that type of housing in town, so it's good for us to keep it going. All right, any other comments on 089, 07? Hearing none, all those in favor? 088. 088. I was backpedaling quickly. He's got several in here, we could just pass them all at once. 088, 07, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign, the ordinance passes 6-0. 090, 07, an ordinance authorizing construction of the Columbus Road Pump Station, Project 219, introduced by Councilmember Bain. I move adoption of 090, 07.
Second.
This is one of the last pieces in the multiple utility Columbus Road project, which was largely funded, not totally, but substantially funded by an ARC grant, for which I commend the mayor. And, all right. And so this is the last piece, so I would advocate getting it passed. Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance 9007 passes 6-0. 9207, an ordinance amending the 2007 appropriation ordinance. Councilmember Sands.
Madam President, I move adoption of ordinance 9207.
Second.
This amendment moves a small amount of money, $2,400 from our unappropriated balances to the general fund lands and buildings fund. This money would be used to repair the damage to the walls and council chambers that is coming from, we believe, water leaking through the bricks or through the ceiling. Would repair this and then repaint these two walls. It would be done, as I understand it, by employees of the city.
Council. Council has to paint the chambers.
We're going to have a party. Anybody else? Next, we'll work on the air conditioning maybe, right? Okay, all those in favor of 9207 say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. The ordinance passes 6-0. Ordinances for second reading. An ordinance amending the Athens City Code to establish Title 41, Site Plan Review. Councilmember Phillips? And no, nothing? Well, I thought we had a checklist. Okay, ordinances for first reading. An ordinance authorizing the Service Safety Director to enter into a licensure and land use agreement with the Hawking Conservancy District. Councilmember Patterson.
Madam President, I move to suspend the rules on 9307.
Second.
If you look at the contract, it was signed on the 19th of June by the Conservancy District and the 27th of June by the city, and it just kind of slipped through the cracks. Nobody quite realized that council hadn't had an ordinance to support this. So that's the reason for the suspension.
Any other comments on the suspension? Hearing none, all those in favor of suspending the rules, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Madam President, I move adoption of whatever the heck number.
9307.
9307.
Second.
As was pointed out in the earlier committee meeting, this is a 20-year agreement with the Conservancy District for the grand sum of $1 for 21 acres for the purpose of the soccer fields. It does not include the area where the building is being constructed. That is not in the Conservancy District. Most of this is just standard lease discussion, and it does refer, the one that Nancy pointed out, number 26, that the Conservancy District reserves the right to keep the strip of land at the edge of the river mowed and clear of debris for floodway purposes. So that's kind of the essence of this contract.
Other comments on 9307? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ordinance passes 6-0. 09407, an ordinance amending ordinance 06207, authorizing the Service Safety Director to purchase a 2-ton dump truck for the street department. Councilmember Flower.
Thank you, Madam President. This comes from Andy Stone, who had sent an email, which was then forwarded to me, regarding the quote price on the 2-ton salt truck. I don't know if the mayor wants to speak to it. or not, but I just wanted to note that the reason for the increase was that we were misquoted on the cost of the stainless steel bed for the truck. So that's why there is the increase. I don't know if the mayor has anything additional to say. We were misquoted. Andy gave some different sort of alternatives, but seeing as though asking for more money was the best because we do need the stainless steel bed, because without that, that's the first part of the truck that starts to rust, and without that stainless steel bed, we lose extra years of life on the truck. Paul?
2 questions. So it looks like it went up 9,000, is that?
$9,092.
And do we need to suspend rules on this?
I asked Ray, and he said no.
Okay.
So no, not that I'm aware of. Andy didn't mention anything to me about needing suspension. I don't think enough snow's coming anytime soon. So. What?
Global warming.
Yeah.
We'll see
Watch
how
it snow tomorrow. That'd be great.
I love it.
Any?
Okay, so you're intending to read this in September then?
Yes.
Unless we have a special
Yeah.
session, in which case we'll swap it on.
Right.
Okay, resolutions.
Would this have been a bid item? Would this have been a bid item?
It was, no, it wasn't a bid because it was supposed to be state purchase price.
Right.
And Andy had called to get the numbers so that we could go through council, and now the salesperson is saying, oh, I gave you the wrong number.
Well, how long is this, they're not, if you wait till September and then go through 2 readings, it's going to be the end of October.
Well, that's why I've got to look, first off, from the salesperson's standpoint, what is a commitment and what is not. And I want your office to look at that. The second problem, I guess Ray's looked at it, is what's the, I don't know what the availability of the 2-ton dump truck is. I mean, are they going to hold it for us? Because we could go ahead and order the dump truck, and it's just the stainless steel bed that's really a question at this stage.
I would
Order all the
recommend
other
council
things would be.
Suspend the rules and provide the flexibility.
I move suspension of ordinance 9407.
Second.
Reason for the suspension, I think we're aware. Urgency.
Bid
Matter.
process. All those in favor of 94, suspending the rules on 9407, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The rules are suspended.
Madam President, I move adoption of ordinance 9407
Second.
for the reasons why we suspended.
Okay, any other comments? You need a stainless steel bed in that salty part of the truck.
And I will note that Andy did try to negotiate with them and get it down. He said he got fairly angry, and so he let it go, and
Anger
so
doesn't work.
here we are.
All right, all those in favor of 9407, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 9407 passes 6-0. Resolutions for first reading. R 1307, resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor. Councilmember Sands.
I'm sorry, Madam President, is this a 1 reading or this is a 3 reading resolution?
You need to suspend, I think. No? You don't need to suspend?
No, this just,
Okay.
what often happens is we put this off to the last minute and we have to suspend, so we're beginning the process now so that we're going to finish it on time. in a
Well,
timely
actually, we
manner,
don't
we hope.
usually receive it in time. I just got this today.
Okay.
If I'd gotten this tomorrow, it would not have had 3 readings.
Okay.
It's due October 1st, and that's usually what happens. It was in my box today, and Debbie, wonderful miracle worker that she is, got it in there for tonight. So it could have 3 readings.
Okay, great.
And this is our budget, county budget commission determining the rates of taxes that we would expect to receive from property in Athens Township and Canaan Township, which are in the city.
It's the
Well,
fixed
good, I
amount.
was going to ask the auditor to explain because I get confused.
No, it's the fixed amount of millage that is reserved to the city at 2.6 mil. It's a standard amount of millage, and the auditor just computes what that, based on the latest value of the property, what that turns into dollars.
So the dollars would
The
be...
dollars change from year to year, but the millage never changed. It's always, there were 10 mills that were able to be set aside years and years and years ago, and the city of Athens got 2.6 mil. So it's a constant figure, millage.
Right, it's just, it depends, there's 2 different rates. It's which township the city is located in, but we're just certifying we still need it in order to operate the city. That's what the council's really doing.
If you were to give it up, you would never.
You give it up, you just kiss 690,000 goodbye.
Right. And that was the point that I was going to make, that we're talking about $691,000.
So coming in September then will be our 1307 second reading. Announcements and other business.
I have an announcement. This should have gone underneath my committee, so I apologize. There was a request I discussed for a street closing. I talked to Ms. Clark, who was supposed to get back to me last week, but never did. So my hope is that she got the university to agree for her to use West Portico. The event's September 29th, so we would have to suspend should we read it, but I just wanted council to know that she never got back to me if she needed us to read it or not. So I just wanted to let you know where that stood.
Other? Opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Seems we've conducted our business and we are now adjourned.